What's poppin', people? It's Dante, currently walking around Fairmount Park, Philadelphia, photographing as always, looking at the beautiful trees. Yeah, I love photographing in the morning. I love going for a nice walk in the morning. Just thinking today about this idea of augmenting your reality. And so the root of the word augment being augere, I believe, in Latin, which means to make larger. Yeah, how can we make our lives, our reality, our world larger? You know, there's something about photography and the way that it augments my reality. You know, nothing ceases to put a smile on my face than seeing the number of photographs I make increase every single day. You know, I love photographing frequently. I love photographing a lot, you know, throughout the entirety of my day. Sort of just treating it like this visual diary of my day, if you will. And yeah, I think that this is a very easy way for any individual to augment their lives, right? To make your life larger through the creation of photographs. And so when I'm photographing, I believe that maybe what I see ultimately reflects how I feel. And, you know, the images I make, while they do depict reality, maybe going beyond and sort of transcending this notion of simply documentation to a more artistic expression of my inner emotional state of being is a very liberating and freeing way of photographing, and that I have been enjoying very fondly for the past 2 years since adopting this new process. So yeah, actually yesterday I was working in a greenhouse pruning some plants, and I was looking at the plants, you know, from very close up, right? Looking at these, you know, veins that grow in the leaves, how the water carries throughout the plant, looking at the roots, looking at the patterns and the details, sort of just being still in the moment. And as I'm looking down at the plants, as I'm, you know, inspecting them closely, they really amaze me with all of its beauty. And, you know, there's just so much novelty around me when I'm on a walk like this that it's actually kind of overwhelming, the feeling and the sensation. And it almost feels, dare I say, godlike, you know, when you're close to a plant and observing it with stillness, sort of just watching the leaves wiggle. It almost looks like you're from a third person perspective above the trees looking down on them, you know, and then I'm just here looking up at them. It's kind of interesting. You know, the trees and the branches and the way they grow, they almost look like the lungs within our bodies. And yeah, it always reminds me to breathe in the fresh air, and maybe to slow down, after all, isn't such a bad idea. You know, I'm always on the move, but maybe without stagnation, there is no motivation. And I find the word motivation very interesting, movere in Latin, to move. You know, this is perhaps the simplest way to enhance your motivation, right? To simply move your body is motivation. Check out this very beautiful ASMR. The cool thing about the GoPro is I can put this underwater. It's all good. Washes right off. Yeah, now I can do some macro photos. You know, I think experimenting with macro photography recently has been one of my biggest intrigues, as I never did this before. And actually this morning, while I was waiting for the bus, I began photographing the bokeh balls. I noticed when I was shooting in macro mode, sort of out of focus and facing the direction of the cars, it's getting this really interesting effect, if you can see in the back of my camera, of just light, you know, just the bokeh itself. And it was kind of just a happy accident, kind of just an experiment, and I kind of like it. It's fun, you know. Treating photography this way is much more fun than taking it seriously. But yeah, maybe to augment reality, to make it larger as a photographer, yeah, maybe embracing the macro function on our camera. you know, maybe this is a good idea. You know, by getting close to the small details and making them larger. You know, for me, the increase in my curiosity each and every day is the goal, and that's how I tend to augment my reality, is through curiosity itself. And you know, when I think of augmenting reality, I think of AR. You think of maybe the Apple Vision Pro, you know, those new goggles you can put on from Ray-Ban. I think they have sunglasses now where they have digital interfaces that pop up, and you know, you're kind of just adding all these accessories, you're adding things to your life, but maybe through subtracting things from your life is the path to true augmentation. I think of acquiring goods, buying clothes, trinkets and objects. You know, these things are merely fleeting and actually become cumbersome, and maybe by subtracting more you grow larger, and that's maybe a better way to think about it. Yeah, I think stillness is something I'm working on, sort of just finding myself in contemplation more. You know, it's very peaceful. As much as I thrive in chaos, I do appreciate rest. And so, very simple message today. I believe that through the act of creation, we augment our world, you know, through the creation of a new world through a photograph. I mean, this to me is the ultimate driving force in my life. You know, the thing that makes me move is the act of photographing. So, look at that beehive. Whoa. Yeah, maybe ultimately my simple idea of augmentation, growing larger, is through subtracting, through stripping down to light and shadow. You know, through looking at the world from that macro, you know, looking at the details. You know, life becomes larger when you slow down and you sort of just let life flow towards you. Yeah, and then you're just there and you're prepared with the camera in hand, and you recognize things and they catch your eye, and you make a photo and you move on. And through that act of increased curiosity and making more photos, you know, in the digital space, you know, I think is interesting as well, where, you know, the digital world, you know, you think of the AR once again and the digital spaces. Yeah, maybe augmenting your reality through the creation of digital photographs is a very minimal solution. You know, I have the small JPEG file that allows me to fill my hard drive with hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million photographs. I'm sure I can fit. You know, I can make my physical footprint in a way very small. Like, not that I want to, right? Like, you think of, you know, the amount of space you take up, right? Like, I don't want to really take up so much space, you know, physically, when you think of making yourself larger. You know, like thinking of like large prints and making like these big blown up photos. I kind of just like the photos living digitally. I kind of like the idea of maximizing the potential of technology, and maybe through making more digital photos, this is where I find that I thrive, through augmenting my reality, through increasing the amount of shots I take each day, and not really worrying about hard drive space or physical space, you know, having to archive all of these prints and sort through all of these negatives and things. I think maybe the digital world is an interesting way to augment your reality. You know, just even through sharing this POV sort of video, I can then come back and relive this moment almost like a photo. And that makes my life larger. That makes my life more grand than it actually is.